I have 3 kids, Rob, 16M, Lisa, 14F, Anne, 9F. Lisa is autistic, and her special interest is Taylor Swift. Rob and Anne go along with it and indulge her. They're good kids who care and support each other, and Rob and Anne get attention and support for their interests too. My brother-in-law Hector's entire personality is trying to rile people. You know the whole "it's just a joke, bro." Super childish, but whatever, he's family. Except my husband is out of the country, so I guess he thinks he gets to do whatever he wants. A few weeks ago he started needling at Lisa by making fun of Taylor Swift using lots of childish name-calling words, intentionally using the wrong word for fans and stuff. Just really immature kid stuff. Lisa knows that not everyone likes Taylor Swift, and some people even hate her. One of her best friends hates her. She's not unable to hear different opinions. She has her own I'm sure she'd love to share with you all if you had 4 hours to spare. He would say, well, Swiffers did XYZ. She would say, Uncle Hector, it's Swifties, and he would say it again to needle at her. Rob was in the room, I was not. Rob said to him, why do you keep using the wrong word? She told you the right word? Hector said he can say whatever he wants and to cry about it. Rob said, it just seems like you're going out of your way to upset Lisa. Rob asked her to finish what she was talking about and to ignore Hector. This is when I came into the room, and Hector waved at the kids and said, Roberta's getting real mad that someone's joking about mother. I wasn't in the room, so I didn't hear the comment about me, and Rob said I wouldn't get it. Before I could say anything, Rob said, bro, did you really just call me a girl's name? Are you 12? I put my hands up and said, okay, enough, Hector, stop. He said, I'm raising soft kids who can't take a joke. I said he's being so effing rude and that he wouldn't be acting like this if my husband was home. I said that if he wants to still go with us to Colorado in the summer like we were planning, he has to stop now or he's not coming. This set him off, and he said I had no right to do that. Yes, I do, and that I'm being a controlling yak over Taylor Swift. I said, no, duck Taylor Swift, this is about you being mean to your niece because her dad isn't home. He said, duck you and good luck next time we have a problem, we're on our own. He took his Costco chicken and left, and I swear he must have immediately gone running to my mother-in-law because she called me to ask for what really happened and sighed a lot. I asked her if I was overreacting, and she said she just hopes we can work it out because that trip was all he had to look forward to since he was laid off from work. I hate causing drama in the family. Comment 1, NTA, don't bring him. 3 kids on a trip is enough. You don't need a 4th. This "it's just a joke" nonsense is just an excuse for garbage people to be garbage and continue to avoid taking responsibility for their actions. I wouldn't want someone like that on a trip with me, or around my kids. Maybe he should worry less about looking forward to a trip and more about looking forward to being a better person. Please be assured that not tolerating piss-poor behavior from a grown man isn't you starting drama. Comment 2. NTA, but I'm really curious about how Anne actually felt about it. Does she know that Uncle Jerkface is joking and trying to rile her up? I'm guessing she has some really good coping skills because you don't mention her getting upset or melting down or anything. I hope her older siblings can clue her in about ways to cope with stupid teasing people like her uncle. Comment 3. NTA, Hector is having a hard time with life right now if he just got laid off, and it's so sad that the only recourse he has to feel better about himself is to bully his nibblings. The fact that your 16-year-old son has a higher maturity and emotional intelligence level than his adult uncle says a lot, good things about you and your husband's parenting. And bad things about Hector. It sounds like Hector needs consequences, and not being able to attend a family trip with kids that he bullies is a natural consequence. Story 2, this will be my wife and I's first child. My sister has multiple children. My wife requested that the shower be kid-free, but husbands are invited. I could have gone either way, but if that's her preference, I'm happy to support it. It makes sense to me, as I had never heard of kids being invited to a baby shower. When I told my sister about the baby shower, I hadn't gotten to the point where I told her it was kid-free. Immediately she told me she'd be bringing 2 of her children. Also, one her kids has a competition so she wouldn't be able to stay the whole time. I told her, so, we're going to have a babysitter that day which will pay for to watch any kids that people bring along. I thought that was super generous. She responded by shouting with, I don't want to do that. It felt rude and inconsiderate. I dropped it and figured we'd revisit later. We saw her in person. She was being really snippy that day. She said, so my time at the shower is going to be a little crunched. Kid A has a competition in the morning and I want to catch part of it. Kid B has a swimming lesson at 4 p.m. So, I'm already crunching the math, including distance, that it doesn't actually leave her any time to actually be at the baby shower. Then she starts grilling my wife. She goes, when are you gonna stop making these kid-free events? In a snarky tone. Then she grilled her because her kids are always the exception, blah blah. She keeps eyeing me for support, but she was being so goddamned rude to my pregnant wife. I just said, because it's a no-kids event. I then walked away and my wife handled it diplomatically. My sister was pissed the rest of her time there but said nothing. In between, I had already discussed the situation with my wife. If it was super important to my sister, we would consider it and probably say okay as long as she can guarantee that they won't be a distraction. However, we would only go about considering it if my sister asked nicely just once, since every time it was mentioned it was rude and came out like a demand. I was hopeful that either agree to the sitter or ask nicely. Then a few days back I got a text that amounted to, it would be too upsetting for the kids to have to stay at home with a babysitter while I go to the shower. So I talked it over with my husband and we won't be attending. Kidda also has a competition the following day too, so we won't be able to come by on Sunday either. Sorry. I'll send a gift. I was pretty hurt by this. I wrote her back and told her I was very disappointed with her prioritization and I don't feel like I am a priority to her. I haven't heard from her since. She has a history of causing issues anytime something big is going on for me. Meanwhile, I am at anything of hers that matters, barring extreme circumstances. Never did I think suggesting a sitter would have caused this. I'm extremely disappointed. Comment 1. YTA sounds like by prioritizing going to her own children's events she wouldn't have had much time at yours anyway. You won't be much of a parent if you can't understand that your children come before siblings. Comment 2. ESH, you are an asshole for your response. When you make an event kid-free you need to accept that some parents are going to be unable/unwilling to attend. She was in a hole for trying to force you to accept her kids, but I don't think she is one for declining to attend because going alone would be logistically harder with the other stuff she needs to do that day. Comment 3. ESH. She should be prioritizing her kids over you? And the fact you think she shouldn't is effing wild to me. Her kids are busy. They had pre-existing plans on the day you guys planned the baby shower. And invite is just that, an invite. Not a summons. She isn't required to be there. Kid-free events don't work for her, cool. You only want to do kid-free events, cool. Honestly, the only person that sounds like they're handling it well is your wife. But you and your sister are definitely the R. Story 3, I, 50M, am a single father to my son, 15M. My then girlfriend got addicted and walked out shortly after he was born. She is no longer in our lives. My son has been making exceptional grades and he plays for his high school's baseball team. He is pretty good at that, though my opinion may be a little biased. Lol. Anyway, that was until he started dating a girl, 17F. They met when they were assigned as partners on a project and I guess they hit it off pretty fast because this came out of the blue for me when I picked him up one day and he just said, "Dad, I have a girlfriend now." I was proud and excited for him that my son was finally becoming a man. I also had a remedial version of the talk with him, can never be too careful. They've been dating for the past few months and they seem very happy together, but my problem is that my son's grades have been slipping. He's been skipping out on chores at the house, and missing practice/games. I'm not mad that he is dating. However, that should come after business, school, baseball, etc. So last week I told him that he is no longer allowed to spend time with her unless he gets his shit together. He responded, "But Dad, I really like this girl." I told him that doesn't matter. If you fail and flunk out of school, I don't want you seeing her, and that's final. He signed and said fine. I figured that was the end of it, well, until yesterday when I come back home from the store, and I found them on the living room couch together. He lied to me and said he would have a friend over to study. My son froze like a deer in headlights. I told him to go to his room, and then I turned to his GF. Now I'll admit that I might have been a little stern, but I told her to get the hell out of my house and stay away from my son. He doesn't need this distraction, and if I ever catch you two together again, it won't be pretty for either of you. Then the waterworks started, and she stormed out. I go upstairs to my son, who is already on the phone, telling my mother and my sister, his aunt and grandmother have always spoiled him. I take the phone and try to explain, but I get lectured for being too hard on him, he's just a boy, etc. I'm just trying to keep my son from ruining his life before it even starts. If he fixes his grades and everything, he can see her again. So I figured it'd be best to get an unbiased third-party opinion. Comment 1. YTA, you're a 50-year-old man yelling and cursing at a 17-year-old because your son disobeyed your rules. This essentially had nothing to do with her. It's not her job to make sure your son follows your rules. Comment 2. YTA. You were a teenager once. If a 50-year-old man yelled at your girlfriend, would it have helped you do anything better/different? He can't learn and grow if you don't let him make mistakes. He's a teenaged boy. Let him have his life. He's gonna mess up sometimes. He's gonna surprise you and succeed when you don't expect him to. You don't need to yell at a teenager's girlfriend, she's not the problem. Story 4, my husband is rich. Makes $50,000 a month rich. We agreed on 3 things before our baby was born. If I covered the 20% down payment on our house, he'd cover the monthly expenses including childcare. If I leave my high-paying job after my mat leave was up, my husband would support me focusing on building my consulting business, which would give me more flexibility with our baby. We'd get a full-time nanny so we could both work, and while work from home get to see the baby, and outside nanny hours we'd split childcare 50-50. The issue came up when now my husband refuses to lift a finger because he's the provider. He won't do any overnights even though baby takes bottles. I am exhausted and burnt out and feel like I got bait and switched. I tried to talk to him and he blew up at me, calling me a princess and lazy. I guess he ran to his mom because I got a message the next morning saying I am putting the family in financial crisis if I don't be a stay-at-home mom for at least the next couple months. Edit. I hope this is clear, we do have a nanny. I've mentioned this in several comments. However, I am covering all the hours outside the nanny plus emotional and mental load of parenting. Given the sleepless nights I have to use the nanny time to recuperate when I hope to use it to start my business, as we had talked about. Edit 2. While my job paid well, it would not cover enough of our monthly expenses and it was very demanding, meaning we'd have to hire much more childcare or husband would have to do much more childcare if I were to go back. He believes that puts his business, which pays our monthlies, in jeopardy. That's why it would create a financial crisis, both if I started a business and if I went back to work. Because his business pays the monthlies, his ability to work at his best must be prioritized and protected, but my career is optional. This is upsetting to me because in my view, I paid up front, but still am stuck with 100% of the off-hours childcare and not allowed to ask for help. Comment 1. Time to look for an exit. If he's throwing the "I'm the provider" line around now, you're not going to enjoy being dependent on him for money. If you have to move back to your family to get support, do that. NTA. Comment 2. Be very careful with this line, and unless your husband has a come-to-Jesus moment and agrees on counseling and stop running to mommy's teat every time he has big boy feelings, said with a pout, it's time to plan for an exit, to be very careful with finances and papers to make sure you don't get screwed over. Comment 3. I hope you got those rules in writing via prenup. 1.5 years ago, my wife's 28F, got cancer. I, 30M, was freelancing at the time and decided to switch to full-time job to pay the bills. My wife doesn't work, so it was all on me financially. I'm a designer, so most of my colleagues are women. After some time my wife became very jealous and aggressive, saying that I'm laughing with women and I'm too friendly. I could laugh a bit during online meetings, yes, and I could offer help to someone in need, but I was never flirting with anyone and wasn't communicating with anyone outside my work hours. From time to time I could tell her something about my female colleagues, like if someone's got a raise etc., nothing special, and my wife would become mad at me saying that I'm comparing her with them even though I never did, even in my head. All this time I was only thinking about my wife's disease, could even cry at work and had panic attacks at public transport. Then she started calling me names. All sorts of nasty things I don't even want to think about. Then she hit me in the face for the first time. I left, but then I returned, because she can't afford the treatment and living by herself in general. She was apologizing and crying, saying that it'll never happen again, and I believed it. She hit me again after a couple of weeks, and did it every single week after that for nearly 6 months. She was also hitting herself sometimes, threatening that she'll find my co-workers and cut them. At the end of 2024 she stopped hitting me for some time, because I switched teams and there are no women anymore. I became very depressed, my feelings to her were at like 10% from what it used to be, but I really hoped that they'll return. After some time she noticed that my feelings are not as strong as they used to be and she became violent again. Today she insulted me, threw a cup at me and told me to get out of her apartment. She inherited it from her grandmother. I left and I don't want to return this time. I feel like an old man, humiliated and broken. She says it's all my fault, but I still don't understand how I deserved all this violence. Best story of the day: my husband recently asked me for a paternity test. Why? Because our son looks nothing like him. I never cheated on him. I would never. He knows he was my first and only partner. I told him he can have the test. Who am I to stop him from it? He took the test and found out our son is actually his and he seemed very happy. I told him congrats. Now you are sure it's your own son you are paying child support for? He asked what does that mean and I told him if he thinks I cheat on him then we truly shouldn't be married. I took my son and left and we are currently staying in a hotel and I'm going to get divorced. He keeps calling and texting and begging me to come back but I don't want to. He said if I had such a problem with the test then I should have stopped him instead of allowing it and then acting like a bratty child and ruining our lives. I'm not sure how I'm the one ruining our lives. He is the one who thinks I'm a cheater. He should be happy he doesn't have to live with a cheater anymore.